In the world of board games, there's at least a handful of them which people would know by name, either because they played them themselves or they've heard of friends playing them. Monopoly probably comes to mind. But this one in particular just celebrated its 25th anniversary, and in honor of that, got a newly reissued special edition. We previously saw a 3D version of the game, but now we see a newly reissued 3D version that's a little bit more affordable and available. So without further ado, this is technically. Let's go. I first got into Catan back in 2014, which was my third year of college. My friend was really into board games and would invite us over to play games pretty frequently, and we first got started with Catan. Very popular because it's almost like it could be likened to a new age Monopoly maybe. You're not exactly fighting for property in the term of like getting cars and then being able to put hotels and stuff, but in a sense you are, because you're colonizing this island of Catan and you're building cities and settlements, building roads between them, and so you're pretty much doing a little bit of a land grab for the island of Catan and its resources. There's plenty of how-tos. You can watch people playing the game and to get like a feel for it. There's even a VR game and I think an app version, so many ways to be able to get into Catan if you haven't previously, but chances are you've heard of it and maybe you've played it already, so I'm going to save you the spiel. Today we have the Catan 3D edition, which is, like I said, a reissue, because a few years back in honor of a different anniversary, I think it might have been the 10th actually, the 10th anniversary, there was a 3D release of the Catan board. And what that meant was all the resource hexagons and actually everything, including the coast, the inland resources, the roads, buildings, settlements, all that stuff got a 3D upgrade. So it was all made of like high quality resin and hand painted. It was really great. Came in this humongous trunk, which I think you can actually still find copies of it on eBay at the time of this recording, but they are pretty pricey and they only play up to 4 players, where the game with its expansion can support up to 6. So if you have a full party, you wouldn't be able to experience a 6-player Catan game with that version. This one follows suit because it is 3D in the sense of you have these like raised textured tiles and pieces of the game, but they're not made of resin, they're made of plastic, so it's a little bit more affordable. This one also gives you access to 4 players only. You can't play a 6-player game of Catan with this. Looks very similar to the regular Catan board, albeit you're getting 3D like printouts of the resources and cities, settlements, roads, all the good stuff, which we're going to get to in a minute. So you got all the playing pieces here in this main compartment, which looks like it should be easy to use for storage and storing all your pieces. A little bummed that they didn't put a little more thought instead of making these cardboard, because these are just the exact same ones that you use with the regular non-special edition of Catan. So the colors you're getting are blue, red, orange, and this like tan off-white color. You can see the little port, which is kind of cool. There's several of them corresponding to the different resources, and then you have your little token pieces, which are almost they kind of look a little bit translucent. They're this yellowish orange color. This is the ore tile. The brick, a little bit more flat. This is your wood resource. Has a bunch of trees in it. Looks like the Pacific Northwest, straight out of Oregon. Wheat, just a little yellow field of wheat right there. And then lastly, the sheep land, which they actually put some little clusters of sheep in there. You can see the sheep are grazing in the field. Oh wait, and we can't forget one of the most important ones, which would be the desert. So you do have this one tile that's separate from all the others because it's supposed to signal that there's no resources here and the robber would be normally placed on here at the start of the game. So it looks very similar, could be mistaken for wheat by some, but this is the desert, so you don't ever want to be next to the desert. So you would normally put these all around the board and you would put your ports accordingly. There's a little bit of a texture to them. It's not completely flat, but it's also not as like raised as some of these tiles would be. It's very nice to see like the detail that went into putting these pieces together, because you have little rocks and little ledges, little pieces of cliff and stuff along each of the edges, and each one is different, so they're not all the same. You have little peninsulas and then little islands on some of them, and others might just have cliffs or little bays. It just makes it look a little bit less cookie cutter, I think. So I appreciate that kind of detail. So once you have your board set up, this is my little figurative Catan board. It would be a bit bigger. Then you have your coastal pieces, put your little tokens on each of the resources to show their scarcity, and then you would get to start placing your pieces. Each player bag is going to get roads, cities, and settlements, which are actually pretty detailed. They feel like plastic, just nicely painted plastic, and a little bit more durable than the regular pieces. I must admit that the original 3D Catan had better pieces that I really liked, and I think they're actually a little bit bigger, but this is nice because it's not as bulky as carrying that little chest around. So everything is nicely compact and contained within this box that they give you. So if you ever need to take it to a game night, easily storable, and you can just put everything back where it goes very easily. What really got me into getting this particular version is the 3D setup. Catan is fun on its own, and once you start adding pieces and stuff to the map, then it can be very hectic and frantic, and I think that's why I enjoy playing the game. But then adding this 3D element gives it some new life because everything is raised from the ground. It's not just this flat terrain. And then the addition of these player pieces also adds to the environment of Catan, makes you really feel like you're playing an immersive game. All in all, I think it's a great addition to your board game collection if you already haven't jumped into Catan. Even if you have the original version, I think the original version was cheap enough where you wouldn't feel some kind of remorse for buying a newer, more revised edition. So if you do want to splurge a little bit and get a nice version that you can have for those special game nights, or you really want to wow some friends, then this would be a great jump into the Catan universe, or even just an upgrade. I would say it's well worth the money. Maybe Christmas gift, birthday present, maybe you just want to treat yourself for your payday. Whatever the case is, it would be a really great addition to your board game collection, whether or not you have Catan already. I have the original Catan game, and I also have the 15th anniversary wooden edition, but I really wanted the 3D version of the board. I didn't want to shell out all the money to get that really expensive one when this was perfectly capable of doing the job. It's still a 3D Catan, it's compact, it's still a really nice addition to the Catan universe and your collection, so I went ahead and opted for it, and it was significantly cheaper, and I still feel good about owning this piece compared to the really more expensive one. So if you're in the same boat, you might feel the same way about getting this one. When something is just a limited run, who knows how many units of this they'll make, you don't necessarily want to be caught in that position where they don't sell them anymore, and then now you have to scour eBay and people are selling them for absurd amount of money. I went ahead and got my own copy because I would rather have it and have it for long-term use rather than try and find it later. Given the price tag that this was made available at, I would say it's definitely worth it. You're getting this 3D board of Catan, and whether or not you have the game, it's still a worthy addition to your collection. Definitely well worth the money, and I would recommend it to anyone who's trying to jump into Catan or renew their board game nights. So a lot of fun. If you plan on picking up this particular version, or any board game for that matter, I would recommend some kind of card sleeves to protect your games. Obviously, the cards are going to be the most touched and dealt with over the years through whatever board game you play, whereas the pieces will be touched but a little bit tougher to clean. Cards will definitely see a lot more wear and tear. So I've personally went and got sleeves for all of mine. I'll put the brand that I use below, but it's definitely a worthwhile investment because you definitely want to protect its longevity, the detail, and also the playability of your games for many more years to come. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope it helped you decide whether or not you want to jump into the world of Catan for the first time, or if you just like to add a new edition of the game to your collection and reinvigorate your game nights. Whatever the case is, you'll be glad that you did, because Catan is definitely a favorite among many, including my group of friends, and we regularly rotate it out with other games during our game nights, so it sees a lot of use, and even years down the line, you'll be glad that you got it, because it's definitely a fan favorite, and the level of detail that went into creating this particular piece is awesome and affordable. Whatever you choose to do, happy Cataning, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
Let's go!